Aesthetics, the art of appreciating beauty, a principle that for many people is a way of living, for others it's not something very prominent. But when it appears, no one can say anything bad about seeing something beautiful and aesthetic. It's a term that in recent years has been increasingly used for all kinds of things and themes, but along with this appreciation of what is beautiful and gives a good feeling, there's a mixture, which is to be expected. It's only natural to combine visual beauty with music. And several things emerged from this mixture. City pop, synthwave, lo-fi. These are just a few examples that have exploded in just a few years when you think about aesthetics. And they basically serve as the face of this entire ecosystem. One of the main themes of aesthetics is the theme of nostalgia, and how that feeling that is impossible to explain can bring happy moments for many people. Some media often have the power to provoke nostalgia, even in people who didn't live in the same era. Just your vision of a different time, old-fashioned or handmade technology that is no longer used today. It's enough to provoke that feeling in many people. In these styles of music that I mentioned, there's one thing in common when you consume each of them: the aesthetics of the late 80s and early 90s. More specifically, the anime of that time, for the simple reason that they are so unique and perfectly reflect the idea of aesthetics. In Taihoshi Chaozu's video, and as we were talking about the whole anime atmosphere of the 80s and 90s, you caught my attention for other similar animes from the time that stayed there with more or less the same idea of police officers solving crimes and such, like Dominion Tank Police, but also mainly Gunsmith Cats. Different from the norm here we are not in Japanese territory. Chicago, Illinois, 90s, Bulls flying high on the back of Michael Jordan, Oprah making more success than the moon, and a living city rebuilding itself after a huge exit from the production industry. Here we meet Irene Vincent, aka Raleigh, and her business partner, May Minnie Hopkins. Wait, you remind me of someone. They have a gun shop around the Rust Belt town, the Gunsmith Cats, the perfect place for you to buy and maintain your iron. Raleigh is very good at what she does and has an insane eye for everything considered a weapon. Minnie now focuses more on explosives, and she is illegal insane, not the kind of person you can trust or even want to be around. You don't even need to give her a reason and she's already going to explode something. But anyway, during the day, that's their job, managing that store. But when darkness falls over Chicago, they have other duties to do. It turns out they are respected bounty hunters. Yeah, someone who sells weapons being a bounty hunter is kind of a natural evolution, right? And that is perhaps expected, right? But one day, they are involved in something strange during one of these jobs, that despite them being successful in it, all the circumstances around it don't seem to make much sense, and that's where the story of this OVA develops. And now, they are intimated and have to do some work that maybe they wouldn't normally do. Although they are not police officers per se, the story follows the line of vision of the world at the time, which is not completely alien, but is different enough from what we see today to be something different from the normal, and you can feel the personality of those who made the story and the animation, and how they saw life at the time. Its hand-drawn animation style gives you a sensational feeling, and because it takes place in the United States, the feeling of seeing what Chicago would be like from the perspective of a Japanese author addicted to guns at the time, it's fantastic, there's no way. Despite having an amazing attention to detail, visually speaking, it's very simple and doesn't do anything better than other similar animes at the time. But that's where the aesthetic comes in, and is simply sensational and very striking. A darker, dirtier, borderline noir environment of investigations, police, criminals, the use of colors with the animation and design designs made by the Japanese cultural style of the time, it's almost perfect. A very cool experience to watch, but the reality is that this OVA kind of doesn't give a shit about you, because this premise of the story that I told you about is just the basics, and the OVA gives you almost nothing. You kind of just accept what's going on without understanding much of anything. It doesn't give you what you need to understand what's happening. You don't know the relationship between the characters. You don't have much of a basis of what's going on. It's as if they placed you in the middle of a story arc and said, figure it out. A character who has always been friends with the main characters appears out of nowhere with no explanation. Good, act like you understand and just watch. Don't ask anything. Everything is very simple, and you can see that is a work that was very restricted due to the somewhat experimental nature of an OVA, and mainly because of its short duration. And you will probably only understand something about these characters and what goes on in their lives if you go and read the manga. But then the aesthetic of an animation from the 90s that we have been valuing so much lately is lost, so it carries all kinds of defects that could appear in the OVA. So reading the manga is perhaps not a perfect solution, and you miss out on this fantastic animation style, but it might be worth reading too. Kenichi Sonoda's designs are very interesting and are really iconic. It's very aesthetic, even without being animated. Seeing Raleigh and Minnie, who have simple and even childish visuals in a darkened world on a dirty, violent road, is somehow very beautiful, and just this reversal of expectations is enough for you to enjoy the story, regardless of whether you are reading the original manga or the OVA. And on top of that, along with exaggerated expressions and ways of acting that only the 90s could offer, you kind of have a formula that is impossible for you to waste time on, whether reading the manga or watching the anime, because you will have a lot of fun and feel great because of this very aesthetic environment. It's something dated that will never be dated. Gunsmith Cat's animation isn't extravagant, but it executes the aesthetics perfectly and complements the calm parts of the characters just interacting and showing their personalities, which are very lively and don't accept anything easily, but also especially the action sequences, which are beautiful. The cars don't have the same sensational personality as the Taihoshi Chaozu OVA, but they are very good and have that feeling of a very analogous animation. It's damn cool. The pursuit of the Shelby GT500 behind the V12 Merc is amazing and has a choreography that is very fun, which kind of exudes that old vision of anime from that time. Something that is in some way realistic but very cartoonish, that stays on that fine line of it could be true, but it could also be perhaps too absurd to be something that could actually happen. Yeah, there's no way. It's a really good vibe. These animes from that time are incredible in giving you that unique feeling that has been lost for many years in the anime world. And it's no surprise that it is an aesthetic that has grown so much recently. In its lo-fi, city pop, synthwaves and various other topics out there. Because this whole urban environment, from a vision before the turn of the millennium and the uncertainty of the future, with all the technology appearing, with a hint of Miami Vice and the Japanese vision of storytelling, is always very interesting, whether it's before the Japanese economic bubble burst when the manga started, or after when the OVA came out. And if you like this series, there are other related materials that you can watch too. It's not just a single OVA. Okay, here they touch on the subject of guns a lot, and they are extremely detailed. If you can identify these things, you will know the name of each one that appears. Just like Taihoshi Chaozu focuses on cars, here they focus on guns. They are not random imaginary weapons. Yeah, with a title of Gunsmith Cats, this kind of thing is to be expected, right? But because of this, and because it takes place in the United States, the debate of whether guns should really be part of many people's lives is addressed, whether they should be legal or not. This is a very heavy topic and is quite complex. There are equal and substantial advantages and disadvantages in both sides, and I know it can be a very delicate conversation for many people. It's not something that I have much opinion about, to say much in that respect, but I used to live a few minutes away from the Beretta factory, so I'm not going to say much about this subject. I will leave up to your imagination. In everything, really, Gunsmith Cats and Taihoshi Chaozo are similar thematically and in their spaces in the world of anime. Both talk about similar things and were released at similar times, but in reality they are very different. Taihoshi Chaozo is very light, has its intense moments, but it's very chill, despite being visually a little more mature. Gunsmith Cats, despite having somewhat childish designs, it's a more adult version of the two. It's shots flying, brass showing, and a certain amount of violence. They are not afraid of showing people getting shot here. It's as if the two stories share the same world, but Taihoshi Chaozo is the calmer police part that normal citizens usually see in that world, and Gunsmith Cats is that more underground part on the edge of the law with dubious people that has a whole environment of tension around, something that many normal people maybe not even know exists. Thinking like that kind of make both stories cooler, particularly speaking. At the end of it all, the legacy of Gunsmith Cats is one that is quite intriguing. It's a name that is equally famous as it is unknown. It's an OVA that even with a short duration left its mark and impacted many people who like anime over the decades. Based on the movie The Blues Brothers, it is a work that will never be discussed as one of the best because it has many problems, but it will definitely never be forgotten because it is so unique and feels good. And for the community that appreciates this aesthetic of the late 80s and early 90s, it's something extremely present and emanates a very good feeling. An anime that makes you feel different things for different reasons, either because of its merit or its context at the time, because after all, aesthetics is the answer to everything.